Despite the area's recent population and job growth, the MBTA lags behind other systems in boosting ridership. A new report from the Pioneer Institute says the T can do better, especially by promoting incentives for ridership that could be offered by employers. We'd like to welcome the author of the report, Bob Dawson. Thank you very much for being with us, Bob. First of all, you're talking about corporate pass program. I've never used it, so how does this work exactly?
Well, it's derived from the commuter benefit program law that began actually back in the 1980s, 1984, when Congress first passed a transit subsidy that allowed companies to deduct $15 a month for transit use for their employees. That was updated back in 1993, that allowed these subsidies to go not only to transit but to van pooling, and a certain amount could go towards parking as well. And that was updated further in 1998, that allowed companies to deduct from employees from their payroll pre-tax monies that would go towards transit. So commuter benefit programs have been running around the country for quite a while now, and the commuter pass program was in Massachusetts, was first developed back in 1974, and the beauty of it is it allows, from the MBTA's point of view, it allows companies to collect fares for the MBTA in either subsidizing and bringing employees into transit, or on a pre-tax basis, taking the employees' money where they get a tax break and putting that towards a card that the person uses can use on a daily basis to use mass transit. So it's pretty easy.
For the employee, this is pretty much like a discount T-Pass, but what about the incentives for employers? What's in it for them?
Well, from the employer's perspective, they do still get a tax break in that with the employee, where they would have their salary deducted for use in the transit, the employer will not be paying payroll tax or unemployment tax on those particular dollars. I think some of the other benefits are that the more people you get into the transit system, the less people will be driving, and thus perhaps an employer will not have to put money into maintenance of a parking garage as much if people aren't using it, or have to put money into buying new parking lots, if you will. The other is that it gives them a competitive benefit program when they're trying to recruit new employees. They have something they can say that we have here for you, like a 401k plan that benefits you from a transit point of view. I think one other would be maybe in some ways employees are less stressed on the job. If you have to drive into Boston from the suburbs, for example, and it takes you an hour and 45 minutes every morning to come in here, you might be more productive if you were on the commuter line, where you could read, work on your computer, and get things done. And perhaps, too, by the time you get to work, you're not stressed out, and maybe you're more productive during the day.
This program is not new, and it's available nationwide. So how does the T stack up when you look at other transit systems?
Well, I think when you look at other transit systems, what I would call peer groups, such as Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Seattle, I think they do a better job of promoting commuter benefit programs. Some of the cities have fairly substantial marketing budgets and staff that work with companies to help them assess whether a program is viable or not. And for example, one of the most important things a company can do before they engage in a program like this is to do a survey of their employees to see where they currently live, how they currently commute, and they're able to collect that information and see what is most viable. For example, in San Francisco, with a company like Google, the way they've developed their commuter program is They have bus locations around San Francisco and other places where they know their employees live, and their program calls for stopping at each of these points, starting at as early as 5:30 or 6 in the morning and going through 9:30. Another company might come up with a different program. But what the other cities and transit systems do is they will actually take a proactive role in working with the employers in looking over the surveys and helping them design a plan and implement that plan. And I don't think that, from my research, there's enough of that with our MBTA.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Bob Dawson from the Pioneer Institute. Bob, this is not one of these simple advertising campaigns that means you just put up the ads on a train or something and riders look at them. I mean, you need a real strategist to go to the employers to make this work, don't you?
Yes, I think that's correct, and that's one of our recommendations, is that the T take on put together a plan and work on an extensive sales and marketing effort with companies in the Boston and the Boston metro area. And I think it really has to be done as a private company would take on a sales and marketing campaign. And that would, by my research, for example, in the downtown Boston area, as far as employees that are located or work within a half a mile of a transit station, approximately 45% of those people are currently offered the Corporate Pass program. Approximately a third of those, or 100,000 people, actually use it. That means that 55%, or about 350,000 in these locations, are not offered the program and obviously are not using it. So I think it's a matter of identifying who those companies are and putting together a plan to go out and make them aware of what they can be offered, what the benefits are to them, to their employees, to the transit system, and then for everybody, because we know with congestion continuing to get worse in the greater Boston area, as it has over the past decades, the more cars you take off the highways means that there will be less congestion, less CO2 going into the atmosphere, and hopefully a better environment to go along with that.
Ideally, a program like this, like as you envision it, there would be more overhead involved, because you have to have the capacity for riders, you have to have the money for the marketing, even if it's done outside the T. What are the benefits for the T, especially in terms of revenue?
Well, in my analysis, if the number of employers offering the program can be increased by, say, 20%, and with a similar marketing effort that targets participants in the existing companies that offer the program, but the employees who are not using it, if you can get a 20% increase with the employers and a 20% increase in participation, that could be over $70 million a year in revenue to the T. There is, I should say, an issue that there could be some people who come into the Corporate Pass program who are at the moment, buying monthly passes or weekly passes on their own. So there would be, I guess you would call it, a certain cannibalization, that there could be people who are counted in one account now and would be just counted in another account going forward. But that would be something of another research that would have to be done to determine whether, of the 70 million, whether that's 3 or 4 million or whether that's more.
Well, I know the largest player here is the T, but you also mentioned in your report the potential for some growth in this PASS program with private transportation providers like we have in the Longwood medical area. What do you see as far as that?
Well,
potential?
I think the Corporate Pass program, as far as the use of the pass, could be extended to other transportation modes. Seattle, for example, they have 7 different transit systems in the greater Seattle area. you buy one card and you can use it on all 7 systems. And so I think what you could possibly look into is the corporate pass program or the card being used in, say, the Logan Express or the Longwood Medical Shuttle or some other transit systems around the state, which would be a win-win for everybody.
Thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Bob Dawson from the Pioneer Institute.